Well, recapping our show's top headline, more than 800,000 young undocumented immigrants will now be unprotected as the Trump administration announced the end of the DACA program. Joining us now to discuss this issue, we welcome our political commentator, as well as the owner of Retrovision Media, Lee Bynes, and good to have you, man. So when we talk about this here, obviously, I want to talk about a couple of things. Number one is no surprise here, because we know that the president running on his campaign said, listen, pretty much, if I get in office, DACA's ended. So for a lot of people, this doesn't come as a surprise, but some people are still shocked. Why?
Well, yeah, shocked, stunned. I think primarily the way it was rolled out was more of a problem than anything else, simply because of the fact that, A, two words could kind of describe this: cruel and callous, heartless. Despite what the president said, and cowardly, also because of the fact that he did not make the announcement himself. He sent Jeff Sessions out to do the dirty work, take all of the heat, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think a lot of people, especially the 800,000 folks who were conned into believing that the United States was going to actually offer them a lifeline. I think a lot of them are stunned because they had bought in to the fact that they had an opportunity, that they wouldn't be penalized for things that they had literally no control over.
And let me go back to this Attorney General Jeff Sessions, because you did say that he was the one who actually did the rollout, and he did announce that it was being rescinded. Let me give you his statement, as he said, and then you'll take it and then give me your thoughts on this one here.
Sure.
It says, now the Department of Justice, quote, this comes from Attorney General Jeff Sessions, the Department of Justice cannot defend this overreach. There's nothing compassionate about the failure to enforce immigration laws. Enforcing the law saves lives, protects communities and taxpayers, and prevents human suffering. Failure to enforce the laws in the past has put our nation at risk of crime, violence, and even terrorism. The compassionate thing is to end the lawlessness and enforce our laws.
See, the only difficulty with that, well, let's break this down in two spaces. For number one, the law was going to be challenged constitutionally because 10 states were already in the process of filing a lawsuit against the government to challenge this executive order that President Obama laid out in order to give these people some cover until Congress eventually will come up with a comprehensive immigration plan. When that never happened. Now, this President Obama signed this back in 2012. Congress had 5.5 years to do something about it. The reason why President Obama signed that executive order in the first place is because Congress had been dilly-dallying for the last 15, 16 years with the same issue. So then we came to a situation where they had no cover whatsoever. They gave Barack Obama the intent of what he wanted to do was to do the humanitarian thing and expect Congress to follow suit. It never happened. So it kind of left these folks in the worst possible circumstances. Now, when I get to the second part of this story is the fact that thinking that displacing or deporting these 800,000 folks is going to reduce crime, bring back jobs to Americans who supposedly they were taking, is an outright, it's disingenuous. I won't say it's a lie, simply because of the fact that these are some of the best and brightest of the undocumented workers. These are the most incentivized people to do the right thing, make sure that they didn't get in trouble, they stayed in school, they didn't found employment. These people started jobs, bought homes. This is the cream of the crop. This is the cream of the crop, and to displace them heartlessly like this really does do more damage to the country than otherwise.
Going to Hurricane Harvey, and we talked about what happened in Houston, Texas, a lot of people who could have left, evacuated. Some people have reported being undocumented immigrants or simply fear of deportation, not coming out of their houses, not accepting help because of the fear of deportation. Given the fact that we've got another hurricane now on its making its way, Irma, and then we've got Harvey, and then all the other things we've got going on, what can we expect coming out of Washington, D.C., or the push out of Washington, D.C.? Are we going to see more mass deportations as a result of this?
It's very possible. The president is trying to say that the Homeland Security and the Justice Department will maintain the same current standing, that they only go after the bad guys. But there's been a lot of reports that's been coming out over the last 6-7 months since President Trump has been in office, that the DACA, some documented people, undocumented people that are covered under DACA have been picked up, detained, and held illegally, and a few have actually been deported out of the country. Now, at this point, I'm sure there's a lot of DACA families that are sitting around the table right now trying to figure out what their next move should be. Should they move en masse on their own and leave the country and make their way up to Canada and hope for a better reception? Or do they just wait and hope that Congress is going to come up and do something in the next 6 months, which they haven't been able to do for 30 years? Because here's the real background. What Barack Obama did with his executive order to give these kids protection was something that, believe it or not, Ronald Reagan, Bill Clinton, both Bush have done. The only difference was is that Barack Obama was bold enough to put it in writing. They've been literally ignoring a comprehensive immigration reform for the last 35 years. So it took this incident to bring all of that out into the open, and perhaps, maybe, just perhaps, Congress will do something in the next 6 months. But if you look at Congress's record overall on anything, if you take a look at, I find it highly doubtful. Another thing is that Donald Trump seems to be hell-bent on erasing everything Barack Obama's done, and I mean from health care, the Paris Agreement, this DACA issue, whatever he's tried to do to make the nation better, safer, stronger, Donald Trump is taking a sledgehammer to all of those things.
We've even heard the president come out, or I should say the president, the Treasury Secretary coming out and saying when it comes to Harriet Tubman being on the $20 bill that this will no longer happen, or it's not a matter of great priority, given the fact that there's security issues and other things to be dealt with. Your thoughts? My thoughts
is it's hard to believe that, especially when you bring up the Harriet Tubman going on a $20 bill and you marry that to the rhetoric that the president has had to say about a lot of Latinos in this country, you marry that to his pardoning of Joe Arpaio, Sheriff Joe Arpaio, and it's difficult to see that this is not a race-based issue. There was another thing that I had a takeaway from yesterday, as a matter of fact, when Huckabee Sanders, the White House spokesperson, was answering questions regarding this DACA event. She made it very clear, not once, not twice, but 3 times in her presentation, that African Americans would stand a chance to benefit by the deportations of these people simply because they were taking jobs that African Americans should have had. In my estimation, what I saw that was a means to divide and conquer, to set one ethnic group or one minority group against another minority group. And it was so transparent, I had to, I cringed when I heard that going on, and I thought to myself, when I get on this show and I have an opportunity to express that, I wanted to let the Latinos know that we are not in competition. We are all people of color, and we will all either stand together or fall together, because that's where it seems where the nation is going. And I was really proud that Barack Obama gave a really powerful statement in response to this action, letting this current president know that that's what he's doing is not what America is all about.
Yeah, and it's not, the president has not, former President Obama has not really commented a lot on what is going on with the Trump administration, saying he wanted to, quote, stay out of politics, but this, of course, weighing heavy on him.
Well, it's destroying his legacy. It's just one more thing that's destroying his legacy, sort of like the destruction of Obamacare. It was almost as though that the Republicans, when they pitch that argument, they do it in the most vicious terms, as though that Obamacare was put into process to hurt people as opposed to help people. The way they've been going after every executive order, every law, everything that he's done, is always placed in the context that Barack Obama was trying to do harm to the country as opposed to bring it together and make lives better for everybody. So I have yet to see in the first 8 months of this presidency anything that this administration has done in a positive way to get something done for people, but it's been a whole lot of tearing down of what's been done prior to his coming into office.
Got to jump to the international front with a couple of minutes left. I want to talk about North Korea also threatening to blow up the U.S. mainland. Your thoughts, your take?
Well, that's one thing I would have to speak against that type of bellicose language on either side, but you have to keep in mind that the North Koreans have already made the determination that that the fact that they are a nuclear nation, that's going to stay on the table no matter. That's non-negotiable. The Russians and the Chinese have come up with a plan to take the bad language off the table. It's called a freeze on freeze. They want the North Koreans to freeze their missile testing and their nuclear ambitions if they can convince the West, specifically the United States, to curtail their war games in the area, which the North Koreans has seen as a threat for decades. And I think that's a reasonable plan. However, the United States is nixing it out of hand simply because of the fact that they're saying that those war games are legal. They've been sanctioned by the UN Security Council. However, North Korea has not, is working outside of international law. The problem with it is that since the North Koreans have already established the fact that they are a nuclear nation, they have the weapons, they have the delivery system, and they're making the threats. If there's a way to slow things down, then all diplomatic activities should be utilized. That is not happening because the Trump administration has already said that talking is not an issue anymore. The North Koreans, as far as he's concerned, only understands one thing. What that one thing is, we don't know, but one can reasonably assume that a preemptive strike might be in the cards. And that is extremely dangerous because Vladimir Putin has said on numerous occasions, especially this week. In fact, Putin is setting himself up to be the peacemaker in that affair in that region, simply because he's having a meeting right now with, as we speak, in, what is the name of this place? Oh, Vladivostok. Right now, they're having a meeting. He's brought the President Abe from Japan. He's brought in Moon Jae-in from South Korea, and a delegate from North Korea is all meeting right now to see if they can figure out a way to slow this military talk down a bit in the region. Now, if he can reach some sort of a deal with the three of those partners, those regional partners, because Russia has a border with North Korea, China has a border with North Korea, they do not want this thing to escalate. So if they can figure out a way between themselves to resolve this issue without the United States being involved, that could be a big feather in his cap. He already sidelined the United States in Syria. He's already working behind the scenes in Afghanistan. He could take over this thing and make Russia look like no longer a regional player, as Barack Obama called them, but bring Russia back to being a major player in the world in terms of changing the trajectory of things.
Well, leave it there. Lee Bonds, that's what we're bringing here. Thanks a lot, brother.
Good to be here.
All right, Lee Bonds, our political commentator. Stay tuned. We got more Open coming up. We'll be with you in just a few seconds.